Let's try that one more time. Make sure everyone's awake. Good afternoon. All right, good deal. I taught 6 years at Oklahoma State University, so I got used to my students just staring at me with these very blank looks on their face. And so I'd always make sure everyone is engaged and paying attention before I got started with anything. My name is Adam Soltani. I am the Chief Programs Officer at the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits. I have spent my entire career, for the most part, the last 15 years in the nonprofit sector. And I'm very excited today to talk to you about strategic partnerships, because perhaps it's always been a very important aspect of nonprofit work. But I would argue that now, given the real challenges that nonprofits are facing as far as funding and what does the future look like for the nonprofit sector, collaboration and being strategic about those who you partner with, whether they be other nonprofits, religious institutions, government institutions, is going to be integral as people continue to figure out how to fulfill their mission. This is my contact information. That's my email. That's my phone number. I used to put that up there and say, hey, call me anytime. I'd love to talk to you and see how I could support your work. But I said that one time after completing a presentation on boundaries, and someone said, excuse me, I appreciate you offering your cell phone number, but that's not a good boundary. So you can have my number. You can try to call me, but there may be situations in which I won't answer. So, especially if it's during a Thunder game, because I most probably will be yelling and screaming at something. All right. I know we've got some people from Oklahoma in the room. So who's from Oklahoma here? Okay, good. Well, that's most of you. Okay, wonderful. All right. So we're going to talk about why do we have strategic partnerships? What do they look like? The concepts of identifying and vetting, what you need to put in writing, and tracking and reporting the impact. Collaborations are processes, Partnerships are relationships, okay? In a minute, I'm going to walk you through the stages of a partnership, and it's very much like being in a romantic relationship with someone. You really go through the exact same stages and the same process of negotiation and compromise. When a group of two or more entities join together to pool common interests, resources, activities, and skills in order to promote broader goals and outcomes for the group's benefit and or move the needle on social change. Now, let me tell you about a partnership that was not strategic so you can know what not to do, okay? In a way, it may have been the fact that these relationships had been formed ahead of time, which is why things turned out the way they did. But this would not be the recommended course of action that I would give to you across the board. So back in 2021, I'm sure you recall, it was August, in fact, when President Biden announced that we're going to pull the troops out of Afghanistan. You guys remember that? So almost immediately, within 48 to 72 hours, what we thought was going to be a peaceful future for the Afghan people politically turned out to be pretty chaotic, right? And it was just turmoil. So the Taliban took over, and part of the result of that was that the Afghan people and their families who had assisted the United States Army through 20 years, 2 decades, they were at risk, right? And so they had to leave the country. They had to flee immediately. Some went to Germany, some went to, the UK, and so on and so forth. The United States, we took in, close to maybe 100,000 initially, and more since then. So Governor Stitt was on the news pretty soon thereafter that, the governor of Oklahoma. He said, yes, we'd be glad to take 1,800 Afghans and resettle them here in Oklahoma. Guess who did the resettlement? I'll give you a hint. It wasn't Governor Stitt. It was not Governor Stitt. And it wasn't any state agency. All right. It was actually Catholic Charities of Oklahoma City and the Catholic Charities arm in Northeast Tulsa that were responsible, with Tulsa getting around 800 or so Afghans to begin with, and Oklahoma City getting exactly 1,006. I know that because I met every single one of them. All right. Now, how did that end up happening? Because I didn't work for Catholic Charities. I worked for an organization called the Council on American Islamic Relations, where I was executive director for 13 years. Right after Governor Stitt said, yeah, we'll take the refugees, Patrick Raglow, the CEO of Catholic Charities, he called a meeting at the United Way offices in Oklahoma City, and he said, we need to gather as many people together that would have a vested interest in supporting these efforts because we can't do it alone, and we need to figure out how we're going to collaborate, how we're going to partner to do this work, okay? So it was a very short time frame to figure out some things, and I would hope that, you can see things like this further in advance. This is not something that happens every day. Just to give you an idea, we supported resettling 1,006 Afghans into the Oklahoma City metro area in 6 months. The maximum amount of people that Catholic Charities had resettled in a 12-month span up until that point was 297. So we broke the record by 4 times in half the time frame, right? So I'm sitting in the room. There's a room set up much like this. So we're 50 people representing different organizations in the room. I am the only organization representing the Muslim and Middle Eastern communities. So there was this direct tie-in, although my organization was focused on civil rights, social justice, government affairs, and education. So we did not focus on refugee resettlement. Patrick Raglow was on a screen behind or in the front of the room because that was 2021. So he unfortunately got diagnosed with COVID. He was fine, but he didn't want to spread it to us. So he's sitting there looking down at us. We're looking at him. And he turns to me on the screen. And he says, Adam, you represent the Middle Eastern and Muslim community. We would like to ask you to partner with us to resettle these Afghan individuals here in Oklahoma City. Can we count on you? I was kind of put on the spot, but at the same time, you might remember COVID, right? We're just sitting around looking at the wall, not knowing what to do. So yeah, sure, why not? We'd be happy to partner with you on this. I took it back to my team. We were a team of 4, including me, okay? And I told them the great news. They did not think it was so great. They were not, in fact, I think some of them were about ready to resign right then and there. So we jumped into this process, all right? We quickly realized that our team of 4 that was barely handling our responsibilities as it was not going to be able to sustain this, all right? And so we ended up getting a grant of $15,000 as some seed funds from a local nonprofit in Oklahoma City. We used that to hire a temporary staff position. And so that was another weird thing where I offered this wonderful, amazing human being named Dr. Jennifer Hunt. I was like, I have money to employ you for 3 months. You want to join us? She's like, yes, I would love to. I'm like, okay, you're my kind of person. Luckily, we kept her employed for 2 years as we assisted through the process. And we were successful in helping 1,006 Afghans not only land in Oklahoma, many of them coming with nothing more than the clothes they were wearing, and help them get enrolled in school, help the children get vaccinated, help them figure out how to make doctor's appointments, all the things you can think of, school supplies for kids and so on and so forth. But we helped them really get integrated into what life in Oklahoma was like. All right, so that is not a strategic partnership. That was a very reactive partnership, okay? Looking back on it, I'm glad we did what we did, and we ended up getting close to $500,000 over 2 years in grant funds from different entities, both locally and nationally. I even had a national funder. It's called the 4 Freedoms Fund. I swear to God, I don't know anything about this organization, except they gave us $125,000, and they found us. They literally called us, and they're like, we want to give you money. I'm like, this is a scam, right? Like, are you sure? They're like, yeah, we have this money that people gave to us. They said they specifically wanted to support Afghan refugees. We Googled, and your name came up. I'm like, come on, you're kidding me, right? And I was like, how much do you want to give us? They said, well, fill out this form. We can guarantee you $75,000. I filled it out 2 weeks later. There's $125,000 in our bank account. Go figure, right? I mean, it was a crazy experience. It was very crazy, okay? Normally, things don't happen that way. That was not very strategic. It was reactive. It worked out. None of my staff quit, by the way. All my staff are women at the time, and so I had to pamper them. I had to buy them some gift cards to go to the spa and all that kind of stuff, so that way I could keep them happy. But let me tell you an example of an actual strategic partnership. As we kind of get into that, however, this slide is very important because when you think about partnerships, Nonprofits really need to lean into the idea of sustainability, excuse me. And sustainability is all about having the focus that your mission provides, having the right people in the right positions. That's your leadership. Okay. There's a great book, ironically called Good to Great by Jim Collins, where he really talks a lot about this idea of having the right people in the right positions within an organization. So I recommend taking a look at that if you like to read. Policies, doing it the right way, resources, having the right kind of support. Okay, so this is our sustainability model at the Center for Nonprofits. We'll talk about this in a second. You probably have seen this if you've been in some other presentations. Apparently, those who have been in the nonprofit sector for any amount of time, we all are fans of this concept of understanding your why. Let me tell you about a different aspect of the Afghan refugee resettlement that would be considered strategic, okay? So we recognize that these people coming in, leaving their life behind, trying to adapt to a new world, right? They were going to need some bridges to cross over in order to feel comfortable in their new land, their new home, right? And so one of the things that we thought is, how can we bring to them one of their cultural and religious celebrations that way they could still feel like a part of them is here in Oklahoma. And so we had an opportunity to sit down and have discussions with the YMCA of Northwest Oklahoma City, that represents two different Y branches, the Sparrow Project, which is a refugee resettlement support agency, a local library, and I'm trying to think, I feel like there was someone else involved. But we sat down and we began to brainstorm because all of us were interested in how we could support this new community towards healthy living and towards feeling integrated in Oklahoma City. So we came up with this idea that every year there's this Eid celebration. In fact, yesterday was Eid al-Adha, which is one of the bigger celebrations that Muslims across the world celebrate. Okay, and so we said, if we can bring this celebration to them, then they might feel like, wow, this is my home just as much as the place I left. And so we got together, we started to strategize and really discuss, and we began to look at, what do we need to be able to do this? How does this fit in line with our mission? Do we have the right people to get this done? And long story short, we were able to, for 3 years in a row, bring this celebration to the Afghan people. The YMCA hosted us at their facility free of charge, and we were able to solicit funds from generous people to get toys for kids and to get food for all the attendees and things like that. So that allowed us to be more strategic because we weren't having to react so quickly. Now, it's important when you talk about partnerships, every organization, every nonprofit really needs to know what is their why. Simon Sinek, he has a book called Starting with Why. Highly recommend checking it out. But it's not what we're doing or how we're doing it. It's really, why do we do what we do? Okay? So if I were to ask you, you're on the front row, so if I were to ask you, why do you do what you do every day? You don't have to answer, but do you think you could come up with a solid answer, or would you need time to think about it? Either or. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Interesting. So there's a reason why you get out of bed every morning. There's a reason why you show up to work. There's a reason why, especially in the nonprofit sector, you put in 10 or 12 hours, right? Or you donate money, or you volunteer, right? And so what this is saying is organizations really need to know why they're doing what they're doing. So with the Afghan resettlement issue, it had nothing to do with being directly related to our mission. It wasn't mission drift, because it was still, there were aspects of our mission we could connect to it, but it had never been done before, and we did not have specific funding for it. We were kind of building it as we go. So people would ask me, why are you doing this? And I tell them simply, our mission is to empower and support the Muslim community of Oklahoma. These people arriving from Afghanistan, 99% of them, they happen to be Muslim. So how are we fulfilling our mission if we are not supporting them as well. Because our why behind what we do is that we are here to support Muslims from all across the world that live in the state of Oklahoma. So it's very important to understand that as you're thinking about partnerships. And then a needs assessment, right? What do we need to improve as far as capacity within programs, organizational structure, community relationships, advocacy and education efforts, right? Maybe you have a program you're doing and you're serving 100 people on a monthly basis. We can use that number as an example. And if you partnered with another organization that has similar interests, ideas, and whys behind what they do, then maybe you can double or triple those numbers, right? So you have to look at your needs based on all of these different things here. Common partnership goals, leveraging resources, okay? Pooling money, pooling space, pooling time together, right? Anybody own a building, an office building? I don't own an office building, but there are nonprofits that do, okay? In fact, the Center for Nonprofits where I work now, we own an office space, and we happen to have half of our offices completely empty because we did not have enough staff to fill those offices. And we thought to ourselves, well, we can either let them sit empty, or we can strategically find a partner that would want to come in and use those resources so we benefit and they also benefit, right? So they're using our internet, our printer, our meeting spaces. They're paying a very low cost rent that they could not pay anywhere else. And so we're taking that money, reinvesting it in our mission. They're getting good office space where they can do everything they need to do. Leveraging resources, pursuing joint funding. Sometimes you have better luck getting a grant application or a funder to give you money if you say we're doing this collaboratively. Reducing costs by sharing the expense, increasing service impact, increasing visibility, professional development and training, improve organizational structure, and advocacy leverage, right? If you go to the Capitol building, who's been to their Capitol building? By show of hands, okay. So I spent a lot of time in the Oklahoma State Capitol building, and I will tell you, if one person walks in the room of a senator or representative, it does send a message, right? But if 10, 20, or 30 people walk in the room, it sends a whole different message, okay? And so I instituted, not I don't say I, there's no I in team, right? My team, when I was with the Council on American Islamic Relations, we instituted the Oklahoma Muslim Day at the Capitol starting in 2015. That had never existed before 2015, and it's been going on since then. And one of the key things was in the second half of that day, we wanted to leverage numbers for advocacy. So we partnered with the Oklahoma Conference of Churches. We partnered with the Interfaith Alliance of Oklahoma and other faith-based organizations who would join us as we went and visited offices to do advocacy visits in the afternoon. And the advocacy wasn't asking for specific bills or legislation. It was, we're here and we just want to build relationships with you. So it was an easy ask and it helped us leverage the numbers there. Here's a really cool video. Goodwill partners with City Rescue Mission. And in this, you're going to see the beauty of strategic partnerships. And there are many examples, but this is a short video that will help you understand the importance and the impact that these kind of partnerships can have on the people you serve. So let's check this out.
My name is Micah, and I am a graduate of the Bridge to Life program. I came here for a second chance, a new start at life. I needed to get away from home and start over somewhere new. And the Bridge to Life recovery program sure seemed like a good fit. I just kind of looked it up and found out that it was a long program, and that was something that I was looking for, something that wasn't just a quick fix, something that was going to stick. And so I decided to try it out.
So the City Rescue Mission reached out to Goodwill to talk about how we could collaborate with our Employment Essentials class and their recovery program and other clients that are at the Rescue Mission. The Employment Essentials class that we offer is a basic how-to class. It gives you information about how to be a good employee. It's those soft skills that employers really need. We take them through a mock interview. We help them get a resume together and a cover letter and give them a foundation that they need then to move into entry-level positions. And at the end, we celebrate their successes by giving them a chance to go through a job fair. And what better way to come into a class, to learn a new skill, and to then even possibly leave with a job. That's what Employment Essentials does.
The Goodwill training class, they helped completely build my resume and my cover letter, and they showed us how to get into LinkedIn and how to set up, your career based on technology. And so it was just a good way to get started. So it's helped me tremendously, and it helped me find a job.
When Micah arrived at City Rescue Mission, she realized that it was time to make changes in her life. And it's been so exciting to watch her over the span of this course really gain her confidence back. And it was so fun after each class she'd come back and say, I have an interview, I have another interview, and for that to turn into, I have a job offer and another job offer.
We believe in the power of work. A job changes people's lives. And so Goodwill is here to kind of be that liaison, if you will, between the community folks looking for work and the employers who are looking for good employees, where it brings those folks together and gives them an opportunity to meet and to get to know one another, and then to fill that void that we have right now in the employment area.
At City Rescue Mission, we strive to provide our clients with a holistic approach to recovery. And so providing this wraparound service with our partnership with Goodwill has been so beneficial. Since starting our partnership with Goodwill, we've had 30 clients participate in the Employment Essentials course. With our recovery clients, 90% of them have already found employment, so it's been incredibly beneficial.
Not only do I want to make myself proud and my family proud, I want to show that the class here at Goodwill, without it, I wouldn't have got the job that I have now. The class was a real confidence builder, to understand that we all have a chance to make it. You just have to put in the work and you have to put in the effort just to continue to strive on, to want to live a better life. It's all about the work and the effort that you put into it. It's going to be a better life now.
All right, so that's an example of a partnership that these two organizations were able to come together and bring further benefit to the people they serve. So the collaboration scale, there are different ways you can think of partnering, right? Because partnering can be what we just saw, but it can be low level as well. So routine meetings with other service providers, okay? Whatever the area of focus you work in, addressing homelessness, food insecurity, mental health, education, the elderly population, whatever the case may be, surely there are others you could meet with locally in your city, in your state, by Zoom, whatever the case may be, just to talk about what are you doing, what are you seeing, how can we learn more. Organization making referrals to other providers, that's the next step. Organizations sharing service provisions and reporting, so that's data collecting, analytics. Organizations mutually sharing resources with another organization, and on the highest end, merge component of delivery of service or administrative functions. So partnerships and collaboration can be anywhere from the low to the high, and sometimes you want to start on the low end and build your way up so you can make sure you feel comfortable as you work along. I was in Perry, Oklahoma. Anyone from Oklahoma been to Perry? No? You have? You know about the Come Again Diner? You know about? You heard of it. So I was in Perry, Oklahoma. This relates to my presentation, by the way. It's not just some random story. And this Come Again Diner is apparently the oldest continually operating diner in the state of Oklahoma. I was like, wow. So I have to check it out. So I asked someone, I said, is this the best place to eat? They said, the food's okay, but it's worth the experience. I thought the food wasn't bad, honestly. I will tell you, if you go, are you from Perry or around there? Just travel. Why? Why would you go there? It's a very small place. I won't ask. But they have really good cinnamon rolls. Really good cinnamon. So why was I there? I was there because I was meeting with these nonprofits. They have about a dozen nonprofits in the Perry area. They have different missions. They have different work that they're doing. But I told them, I said, look, maybe you cannot directly partner on the work you're doing, but you're in such a small area, and yet your services are pretty vast, and you serve people even outside the city and the surrounding areas. you have to get together and talk about ways you can find to partner, even if it's on the low level. And so what I encourage them to do is, why don't you have quarterly nonprofit roundtables where you can discuss the challenges, the opportunities. Maybe you will identify opportunities to partner or work together. But I said there's another thing that you would get from that. You can call me, right? And I will tell the grant funders at the different foundations that there's these nonprofits in this area doing amazing work. They have quarterly meetings. Why don't we go visit with them so you can hear about it as well, right? So there can always be a lot of power in the collective, and that's an idea you may want to work with. Of course, this is another example of levels of integration. So coalitions, collaborative communities of practice, joint programming, shared services, and merger. We already kind of went over this, so we can move past this slide. Formal versus informal partnerships. Okay, so you've got your mutual accountability and formal on the top right corner. That's fully integrated merger, joint partnership, co-location, strategic alliance. And then you got the informal separate accountability in the bottom corner. That's coalition, committee, informal network. You can always use a diagram like this to plot out the different relationships you have with different organizations or people or entities to determine where they are on the scale of formal or informal, or where you would like for them to be. Types of partnerships. Let's think broadly, right? Let's not just think of the ones that are obvious, but really think outside the box. Colleges, universities, and schools, hospitals and clinics, community-based organizations, volunteers and interns, donors, churches and faith-based organizations. Pause. Did you know that right now, with all of the chaos going on in the world, the economic struggles, the funding issues, faith-based institutions are not facing the same pressures as your regular nonprofit? They are facing some pressures, right? But the support for faith-based institutions is still relatively stable across the board. So it may be time that if nonprofits have not explored those partnerships, it is worth looking at. Legal services, county agencies, the list goes on and on. When we were working with these Afghan community, one of the things we found out is all of the children needed vaccines. They had never been vaccinated, or if they had, there was no record of it, right? And so in Oklahoma City, Putnam City School District said, you know what, we'll admit them without their vaccination, but they'll have to get it within a certain time frame. Now, 60% of the 1,006 Afghans that came to Oklahoma City were under the age of 18. It's a lot of vaccinations. Now, getting those kids to doctors when language is a barrier, transportation is a barrier, right? Other issues could be challenges, proved to be impossible. So one of the things we said was, who can we partner with from a community-based organization or a hospital and a clinic to get the vaccinations to these people? And so we found, I believe it was NSO, Neighborhood Services Organization in Oklahoma City, that was able to provide this service along with a partnership through Oklahoma County Department of Health. So we had a community-based organization that had a clinic, we had a government entity, and they came out to the apartment complexes where these individuals lived, and they were vaccinating them one after the other, right? So you got to think broadly about the kinds of partnerships that you can make. Who do you need to partner with? And who are your current community partners? All right, so let's take a few moments. I want you to get into little groups. So I'm going to do this for you because I know people don't like to do this on their own. So the four of you here in the front, you're a group, okay? You've got four already there, so I'll let you stay there. You in the middle, you're going to join those two and the one in the back, so you'll make four. And look at that, got groups of four going, and you four together, all right? Let's take 5 minutes. And I want you to talk about who do you partner with or who do you need to be partnering with in the work that you're doing. And let's explore some ideas together and then we'll report back. All right, so get together in your groups and discuss. 5 minutes. Yeah. All right. Let's hear from one another and see what we learned, okay? By the way, we had a great question here from this group in the front, and I will go ahead and share it with you. The question was, we have a rural nonprofit, far northeast Oklahoma. If there aren't people within our area to partner with, how can we forge partnerships maybe with someone in the Tulsa area or somewhere else outside of where we are physically located? And I told him, you're in luck because you're in Oklahoma. That's really what the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits exists to do, is that we would love to be able to find out more information about your organization, what you do, what you'd like to do, and make those connections for you. If you're not based in Oklahoma, you go to the National Council for Nonprofits. I can show you that. Here we go. If you go to the National Council for Nonprofits website, I think it's right here on the main page, and you go to our network, almost every state except a few. So we're right now very unhappy with Indiana for more reasons than one. But those 4 states, they don't have associations. Every other state does. So if you went to Oklahoma, it's going to pop up Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits. Georgia, right? So if you're in Georgia, oops, that's not Georgia. Sorry. There. You've got this coalition, right? So every state's going to be different. Some may have 2 or 3, some may have 1. But going to this website and figuring out what are those umbrella organizations that can be the connector can be very helpful. All right. But if you're in Oklahoma, reach out to me. Not anytime, but I will get back to you. All right. Okay, this group in the front corner, tell us briefly, what did you learn? Anyone? You know, faith-based institutions can be very powerful. Going back to the ongoing story about the Afghan refugee resettlement, we had more than 100 faith-based institutions, churches, mosques, synagogues that jumped in and said, we want to help. I'm going to give you one example. Temple B'nai Israel, which is the Reformed Jewish synagogue in Oklahoma City. They furnished apartments and houses for 12 women. And when I say couches, chairs, dining table, food, bed, name it. And so the cost of that, I can't even imagine. Right? But we would not have been able to do that on our own. It would have taken a lot of work, right? And so, yeah, faith-based institutions, because it's vacant to mission, even it's, right? It's kind of, they have their selfish reasons. It's that those are the reasons they want to do, right? And so if you can align them, well, I mean, you That's beautiful. I mean, just for me at this conference, we met about half a dozen people. I was invited to, I didn't know where I'm coming to, like the people and the diversity in the room. I've met half a dozen people. I've got their names, their emails, right? So you're just by going to these events where you meet people, you never know what might. Yeah, this is wonderful. For the sake of time, we're going to move on, but there is a lot of great benefit that can come from just taking time to sit and really explore where are we at, who do we need to partner with, because it's all about intentional partnering, right? Like I said, it's much like a romantic relationship. You start out by playing the field, right? Seeing who's interested, seeing who is single and ready to mingle, or however you like to look at it. Then you weigh your options, right? Where is the most long-term benefit going to come from any of these relationships? And if you're lucky, you fall in love, right? That's the first step. So it's really all about getting to figure out where is the potential for solid, in-depth, long-term partnership. Then you consult, right? And determine if this is the way you want to go, right? When I wanted to get married, I go to my mom, I'm like, hey, I met this girl. I mean, give you the rundown. I'd like you to meet her and tell me what you think, right? Because I want to make sure mom approves, right? And so you got to really think about who can you consult to make sure that you're doing the right thing. Coupling and uncoupling is interesting. You have to be prepared. How are we going to enter into this relationship as far as being partners? And what's our exit strategy? Okay, not like President Biden's exit strategy, but we need a better exit strategy, okay? In that, how are we going to dissolve this partnership if we get to the end of what we're working on, or if, it doesn't work out? Then we agree that we're committed to do this work together, and then we're in that blissful union for as long as it should be. Maybe it's indefinite, maybe it's just a set period of time, okay? Be honest and realistic. Evaluate your resources, evaluate and know your culture and theirs. Okay, this is very important. Know what are your resources and the resources of those you want to partner with, okay? And then also take a look at your organizational culture, your mission, your vision, your values. I have to say that slowly because I can't say it too fast, right? And then does that align with those you want to partner with, okay? Establishing shared goals, prioritizing your mission, okay? There has to be alignment in the work you are doing. Now, it may sound like a bit of an extreme example I'm about to give, but you can't have two organizations that say, we want to partner together, and one is pro-life and one is pro-choice. Doesn't make sense, right? Because they're moving in the exact opposite direction. Okay, but you can have organizations come together that say we're pro-life and we're pro-education, okay? And then you can find common ground, for example. Prioritize the mission, highlight the win-win. Like, why are we both benefiting from this relationship? Identify areas of value alignment, all right? Maybe our missions are not exactly aligned, but we're okay with working together. We're both benefiting from this. What are the values that we agree upon? What are we doing together? And this is just an example of many different things that you can do in the partnership, from the letters of support to membership to service referrals and so on and so forth. That's really up to you to decide, but always good to look at before getting into the official relationship. Anticipating and addressing barriers, all right? So before you get into things like I did with the whole Afghan resettlement, you have to look at, do we have the resources? Do we have the stability and the organizational culture needed to do this partnership, okay? So those are really the things. I'm not gonna read all this off, but those are the things you really wanna look at on both sides of that. Defining clear terms, okay? What are the terms of this relationship? I will tell you this. Let me just throw the rest of those up there real quick. If you're going into an official partnership with another nonprofit or a government agency, and anything is shared as far as money, resources, particularly money, make sure you have an MOU or some sort of written contract or agreement, okay? If you're just collaborating or perhaps making referrals, you can have something very simple or an informal agreement, but you want to have clear terms. Dedicate staff time and capacity, convene stakeholders, okay? If you're entering into a partnership like you talked about with the faith-based institutions, you may want to convene your stakeholders, your clients, your donors, your staff, your board, and say, are we okay with doing this? Because there are certain implications to working with faith-based organizations. Some would say, I'm not comfortable with this, and you need to know, all right? Agree on that shared vision, agenda, and metrics of success, align resources, do due diligence, ensure agreement. As James Clear says in his book, Atomic Habits, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. In other words, hope for the best, plan for the worst, all right? We hope that these partnerships will be lovely and everyone will be happy and, wake up every morning and smile at one another, right? Like my wife does when she wakes up and looks at me. Not really, but, we like to think that, right? But when that doesn't work out, right, then you fall back on what you have in writing, your policies, your procedures, your systems in place. In fact, I texted my wife this morning. I said, I miss seeing you this morning. I'll look forward to having a cup of coffee tomorrow morning. She's like, I'm fine. You can stay there another night. I was like, okay. That's what 16 years of marriage does to you. All right, so make sure, put it in writing, whatever it is, okay? Whether it's a simple letter of support all the way to an intense contract or agreement, you got to make sure that you put things in writing. Be adaptable to build trust, okay? Embrace mistakes and take strategic risk, right? We are not going to do things perfectly, and when we start working with others, inevitably something's going to go wrong somewhere. Okay, so embrace mistakes, use them as learning opportunities, and take strategic risks. Expect and accept conflict. All right, if you were in my training yesterday for Crucial Conversations, we talked just about this, is that conflict is going to occur. How can we use that conflict to fuel growth and positivity, allow it to be constructive, not destructive? Risk versus uncertainty, all right? Knowing that we're okay taking certain risk and what are the uncertainties we're facing. Remember, trust is a currency of relationships. So you have to build and foster that trust. And quite honestly, I did this for a long time as an executive director. 13 years, we always had partnerships with different organizations. I find transparency to be the best trust builder, okay? So I don't know, maybe it's me, but I've never seen a reason why nonprofits should be hiding things, because if you're doing things for the public good, then you should be as transparent as you possibly can. Steps summarized. Determine your organization needs and what is desired from a partnership. We already did an example of that earlier. Identify potential partners and begin those conversations. Consider practical implementation challenges. Conduct due diligence and negotiations, implement collaboration, adjusting as needed. On the due diligence part, I kind of skipped over that briefly. Make sure you vet these partners, okay? Do your research. The internet is really great for that, okay? Do your research on who you're going to partner with, what's their history, is there any baggage you need to be aware of, so on and so forth. All right, because you don't want to enter into a partnership you think is great, and someone comes back and says, their executive director was embezzling money, right, 10 years ago and got arrested and sent to prison. You're like, I had no clue, right? Something like that. So you want to make sure you know everything behind the scenes. And then the phases of partnership: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. It's all about coming together, figuring out how we're going to work together, doing the work, and then going our own separate ways. We've already really discussed that. It's just a different way of looking at it. Collective impact is not just a fancy name for collaboration, but represents a fundamentally different, more disciplined, and higher performing approach to achieving large-scale social impact. And that's where I'm going to end my presentation, is that the idea of partnerships, all of the hard work it takes to figure out what we're going to do, from identifying these partners to forming the partnerships to putting things in writing, et cetera, is really all about that collective impact, right? We all want to have a positive impact on the people we serve, the people we work with. And if we can partner with others, it's just don't worry about it. No, don't worry about it. And if we can partner with others to increase our impact in a positive way, then at the end of the day, everyone benefits. And I will say now what I said at the early part of my presentation. We live in a time in which nonprofits are having to take a really hard look in the mirror. There are nonprofits that are having to cut staff positions. There are nonprofits that are having to reduce their services because of grant funding cuts. There are nonprofits that are having to close their doors. These are things that I don't want to see ever for anyone, right? And so strategic partnerships can be a way to continue having that positive impact on the people you serve, maybe even increasing that impact through strategic partnerships, and hopefully avoiding the catastrophic decision of having to completely close the doors on a nonprofit, because as they say, this too shall pass. And one day we'll be looking back and like, hey, you remember the recession of 2008? That was a thing. COVID, oh yeah, that was a thing. Whatever happening right now, what are we calling it right now? I don't know. But you know, the thing that's going on in 2025, that was a thing, right? And we all lived through that, okay? And so collective impact is what is really the ultimate goal of these strategic partnerships. Does anyone, we have a few minutes, does anyone have any questions or comments? Yeah. Yes, of course. Please feel free to take down my contact information. And if you're in Oklahoma, then I can provide a lot of really hands-on direct support. If you're not in Oklahoma, we are members of the National Council for Nonprofits. And so I can connect you to your state agencies and try to help you make those relationships work well there. So happy to help talk to you more about who can be potentially partners with you. If you're a member of the Center for Nonprofits, there's a lot of member benefits we provide. If not, let me know and we'll figure out how we can get you on as a member as